Okay, so everyone thinks defense and they picture, like fighter jets and tanks, the whole military thing. But behind all that, are these companies doing some seriously cool, cutting-edge stuff?
It really is a fascinating sector.
So that's what we're diving deep into today, defense contractors and the tech they're developing. And we've got some interesting sources lined up, company websites, stock comparisons, even a video of Palantir's Sky Kit.
Oh yeah, the Sky Kit. It's like an intelligence center in a backpack.
Right. Crazy stuff. Whether you're into the future of defense or just cool technology, there's something here for you.
Let's kick things off with Amentum. This company is huge. We're talking 53,000 employees, 80 countries, 7 continents.
Wow, they're practically a small country themselves. And their website says, advancing the future together. What does that even mean for a defense contractor, I'm imagining? Like laser beams and teleportation.
Well, maybe not that far out there, but they do work on some pretty futuristic stuff. What's interesting is they highlight not just defense, but science, security, and sustainability too.
Okay, so a bit broader than just, building weapons.
Right. For example, they're really big in the energy sector, especially nuclear power. They've got this project involving robots that work inside nuclear reactors, environments that are way too dangerous for humans.
So not your average Roomba then.
Definitely not. These robots can do inspections, maintenance, even handle radioactive materials. And then there's this technology they're pioneering called SIL, which stands for, get this, selective ionic adsorption leaching.
Catchy.
Yeah, it's basically a way to treat radioactive waste.
Huh. So they're trying to tackle the whole nuclear waste problem then. That's a global issue.
It is, and it ties into their environmental work too. They were a big part of cleaning up Dalgety Bay in Scotland. It was called Scotland's most radioactive beach.
Wait, a radioactive beach? How does a beach even become radioactive?
So during World War II, some discarded aircraft instruments that had radium in them ended up contaminating the area. It took decades to clean it up, and Amentum was a key player in that.
Wow, so they're like the cleanup crew for radioactive messes. That's pretty cool, actually.
They're also involved in the ongoing cleanup at Fukushima, the site of the nuclear disaster in Japan back in 2011.
So not just defense, they're applying their know-how to some really tough environmental problems too. Pretty impressive. For those listening who are interested in the stock market, where does Amentum stand?
Well, they're publicly traded under the ticker AMTM, and as of today, they have a market cap of about $5 billion.
Okay, $5 billion. With a B. From radioactive beaches to billions of dollars, Amentum's one to watch. But let's move on to another company now, Kratos. They've got this drone called the Valkyrie that the Wall Street Journal said could be a game changer for the military.
Yeah, the Valkyrie, or XQ-58A, it's pretty amazing. Stealthy, long range, we're talking 3,000-mile range, and it can work alongside fighter jets. But what's really interesting is the AI integration. It's got a level of autonomy we haven't really seen before in unmanned systems.
Hold on, 3,000 miles. That's like flying across the entire U.S. And it's AI-powered. Are we talking like Skynet-level intelligence here?
Well, not quite Skynet yet, but the Valkyrie is definitely part of this larger trend in the U.S. military toward incorporating AI into their systems. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve, especially with competitors like China who are investing heavily in AI themselves.
So Kratos is right in the thick of this whole AI arms race. But wait, I'm seeing they're doing more than just drones.
Oh, yeah. Kratos has their hands in a bunch of different things. Satellite communications, training systems for soldiers, and even, get this, rocket engines.
Rocket engines. Like for spaceships. Okay, now my mind is blown. What are they launching into space?
Well, not outer space just yet. They're actually making a rocket engine for Boom Supersonic's Overture. That's the passenger jet that's trying to bring back supersonic travel.
So they're literally working on making supersonic flights a reality again. That's incredible. But their market cap is only about $3 billion, way less than Amentum. Why is that? I mean, they're building these crazy drones and engines for supersonic jets.
That's a good question, and it kind of shows how complex valuations can be in the defense sector. Company size is definitely a factor, but so are the specific technologies they develop, what government contracts they have, and how much growth potential investors see.
So it's not just about how big you are, it's about what you bring to the table, tech-wise. Interesting. But for now, let's move on to Leonardo DRS, a company that's all about seeing threats before they even appear.
Now, Leonardo DRS is fascinating. They specialize in what you might call super senses for the military. It's all about advanced detection, protection, and communication systems so soldiers can get a real-time picture of the battlefield.
So they're like the eyes and ears of the military, basically. What kind of tech are we talking about here?
They focus on four main areas: advanced sensing, force protection, network computing and communications, and power and propulsion. Each one is super important in modern warfare.
Okay, break it down for me. What's advanced sensing all about?
Think of it as everything that helps the military detect and understand threats. They develop really sophisticated radar systems that can see farther and with more detail than ever before. And they're also leaders in electronic warfare, which is basically jamming enemy signals and protecting our own communications.
So it's like a high-tech game of hide and seek, but with much higher stakes. Okay, what about force protection? What does that involve?
Force protection is about keeping soldiers safe on the battlefield. Leonardo DRS develops advanced armor for vehicles, protective gear for soldiers, and even systems that can detect and neutralize incoming threats, like rockets or missiles.
Wow, so they're literally the ones making sure our troops have the best possible protection in really dangerous situations. That's crucial work. And what about network computing and communications? That sounds pretty technical.
It is, but basically, it's all about making sure the military can communicate effectively and securely on the battlefield. Even in the middle of chaos, they need good communication. We're talking secure data links, battlefield-wide networks, systems that can share info in real time.
So even in war, you got to have good Wi-Fi, right? And what about the last one? Power and propulsion. What falls under that?
That area focuses on how military vehicles and systems are powered and how they move. They're working on advanced naval power systems and hybrid electric drives for military vehicles.
So it's not just about weapons and defense. They're thinking about the whole package, how military forces can operate effectively in any environment. Interesting. But Leonardo DRS is privately held, right? Does that mean you can't invest in them?
That's right. They're not on the stock market themselves, but they are a subsidiary of Leonardo SPA, which is a big Italian company, and that is publicly traded.
So there's still a way to get in on the action if you're interested. Okay, now for the one I've been waiting for, Palantir. Their SkyKit system is just wild.
The SkyKit has gotten a lot of attention, for good reason. It's basically a self-contained intelligence center in a backpack, designed to give soldiers real-time intel no matter where they are.
It's crazy. I saw a video of it. It's like something James Bond would use. It's got 2 monitors, its own battery that lasts for days, and even secure storage for all the tech that comes with it.
Yeah, they designed it to be super functional and portable.
Yeah.
And the tech it's packed with is pretty impressive.
Oh man, where do I even begin? It comes with a drone, a trail camera, a ruggedized laptop, all running Palantir's AI software.
And that software is really the key to the SkyKit. It has 2 main parts: Meta-Constellation and AIP.
Okay, those sound intense. What do they actually do?
Meta-Constellation lets soldiers analyze satellite imagery from anywhere in the world. Imagine you're out in the field and you need to get a real-time view from space. You can do that right there from your backpack.
Wow, that's insane. It's like having a satellite in your backpacks.
Yeah.
What about AIP? What does that even stand for?
It stands for Artificial Intelligence Platform, and it basically powers the drone and the trail camera. It uses some pretty advanced algorithms to identify and track targets, analyze patterns, even make decisions based on the info it's gathering.
Hold on. The AI is actually making decisions out in the field. Isn't that a little, I don't know, unsettling, like AI calling the shots in a war zone?
It's definitely a big step, and it raises some questions about the role of AI in warfare, that's for sure. But it shows how Palantir is pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this tech.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch, especially with their massive market cap, like $133 billion, according to BuyPoint. They're dwarfing every other company we've talked about.
Their success is undeniable, but they have been a bit controversial.
Oh, right. I've heard about that. What are some of the concerns people have about Palantir?
Well, their technology is extremely powerful, and some people worry about privacy, surveillance, the potential for misuse. But that's a whole other conversation. For now, let's just focus on the tech itself.
Okay, fair enough. So we've got companies cleaning up radioactive beaches, others making AI-powered backpacks. The world of defense contracting is way more diverse and innovative than I think most people realize. But what does it all mean? Where is all this tech taking us?
That's the big question, isn't it? All this tech raises some fundamental questions about the future of warfare. Will these advancements make conflicts more or less likely? How destructive will future wars be? And what role will AI play in those conflicts and the decisions that are made? It's something to think about as we move forward.
It definitely is. But hey, on a lighter note, can you imagine pitching any of these companies on Shark Tank?
Oh man, I can just picture Mark Cuban's face when they start talking about a drone that could fly across the country.
Right. But on a more serious note, let's zoom out for a second. You mentioned China earlier. What's the global picture here? Is this just a U.S. thing, all this defense tech development?
Not at all. The global defense industry is huge, and there's a lot of competition. The U.S. is a major player, but so are countries like Russia, China, France, the U.K., just to name a few.
So it's a global arms race, basically. Everyone's trying to outdo each other with the latest and greatest tech.
You could say that, yeah. Countries are always trying to get an edge, or at least keep up with their rivals, and AI is a big part of that these days.
AI seems to be the hot topic in every industry now, but especially in defense. Is it really as game-changing as people say?
AI has the potential to be a real game changer in warfare, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It can automate tasks, analyze tons of data, and even make decisions incredibly fast, which could be a huge advantage in a conflict. But it also raises those ethical questions about autonomous weapon systems and the possibility of unintended consequences.
Right, the whole robots taking over the world scenario. We got to be careful with this stuff.
Absolutely. But for now, let's bring it back to the companies we've been talking about. We've seen different approaches to defense tech, from Amentum with their environmental cleanup to Palantir and their AI-powered intelligence platform. What are some of the big takeaways for you so far?
You know, one thing that stood out to me is how the lines are blurring between traditional defense and other sectors. Companies like Amentum are applying their knowledge to solve big global problems, not just military ones.
That's a good point. It's not just about building weapons anymore. It's about using cutting-edge tech to solve a wider range of problems in defense and beyond.
And then there's the whole AI thing. Companies like Kratos and Palantir are building systems that can process massive amounts of data, make decisions in real time, even operate on their own to a certain extent.
Which, as we said, raises those ethical questions we need to be thinking about.
Right. It's not just about how cool the tech is, it's about the impact it has on the world.
For sure. And another important thing to remember is that the defense industry is very competitive. These companies are always fighting for government contracts, trying to get a bigger piece of the market. That's a big driver of innovation.
So it's not just about making cool tech, it's about being able to sell it, to convince governments that your solution is the best.
Exactly. And that leads to another takeaway, the importance of the financial side of this industry. Stock prices, market caps, how investors feel, it all plays a role in shaping the landscape and which technologies get developed.
So even if you're not personally investing in these companies, it's helpful to understand how those financial factors influence what kinds of tech get made.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty amazing companies and technologies, but it feels like we've only just scratched the surface here. What other crazy things are they working on?
Oh, there's a whole universe of stuff out there. Hypersonic missiles, directed energy weapons, cyber warfare tools. It's mind-boggling.
It really is. But with all this advanced tech, it makes you wonder, how is this all going to change war itself? Will there be more conflicts or fewer? Will they be more destructive or less? And what about human soldiers? What role will they play in this high-tech future?
Those are the big questions we have to ask ourselves. There aren't any easy answers, but it's crucial to have these conversations and really think about the role technology plays in our world, especially when it comes to defense and security.
I agree. We can't just get caught up in the cool factor of new weapons and gadgets. We have to think about the consequences and make sure these powerful tools are used responsibly.
Well said. At the end of the day, technology is just a tool. It's up to us as humans to decide how it's used and what kind of future we want to build.
Well said. And for our listeners who want to dig deeper, what resources would you recommend?
Company websites are always a good starting point, but don't stop there. There are tons of news articles, research reports, even documentaries that look at different parts of the defense industry.
And podcasts like ours. We'll keep exploring these topics and bring you the latest insights.
Definitely. But before we move on, I'm curious, out of all the companies we've discussed, which one do you find the most interesting or innovative, and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one. They're all doing fascinating work, but if I had to choose, I think I'd go with Palantir. Their AI work, especially the SkyKit platform, it's just mind-blowing. It's pushing the limits of what's possible in defense intelligence.
I get that. Their tech is incredibly advanced, and it could totally change the way wars are fought. But like we said, it also comes with those ethical concerns that we can't ignore.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between innovation and responsibility.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears a bit. You know, one thing that struck me as we were talking about these companies is that the defense industry doesn't always have the most, well, glamorous image. People think tanks, planes, bombs, not cutting-edge software or AI.
You're right. There's this idea that the defense industry is slow-moving, bureaucratic, even a little old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But these companies are proving that stereotype wrong.
Totally. They're under a ton of pressure to innovate, to develop new tech that can keep up with changing threats. And they're doing it. We're seeing breakthroughs in AI, autonomous systems, hypersonic technology, you name it. It's a hotbed of innovation, just maybe not in the way people usually think of it.
It's like this hidden world of cutting-edge tech operating behind the scenes. And today, we've gotten a little peek behind that curtain.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this field so fascinating. It's full of surprises and challenges, conventional wisdom.
Well, I'm definitely surprised by how much I've learned today. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on the defense industry. It's not just about brute force anymore. It's about using technology in more and more sophisticated ways to achieve strategic goals.
You got it. It's about intelligence, information, and precision as much as it is about firepower.
And that brings us to another important point: the changing nature of warfare itself. We're moving away from traditional battlefields and into new domains like cyberspace and outer space. And these companies are developing the technologies that will define the future of conflict in these new arenas.
You're absolutely right. The battlefields of tomorrow are going to be completely different from those of the past. And the companies we've talked about today are playing a big role in shaping that future.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all this information. It's a lot to process.
It is a lot to take in, but that's what makes it so compelling. The more we understand about the technologies shaping our world, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
That's a great point. And I think it's also a call to action for our listeners. Don't just accept what you hear at face value. Do your own research, ask questions, and form your own opinions.
Exactly. Be critical thinkers, engage in informed discussions, and be active participants in shaping the future of technology and its impact on our world.
Well said. Now, before we wrap things up, I have one final question for you. Of all the technologies we've discussed today, which one do you think has the greatest potential to change the world? For better or for worse?
That's a tough one. But I'd have to say artificial intelligence. Its potential applications are practically limitless, and we're only just starting to see its impact on society. It has the power to revolutionize so many things: healthcare, transportation, education, and of course, warfare.
I agree. AI is a double-edged sword. It has the potential to solve some of humanity's biggest challenges, but it also comes with big risks if it's not developed and used responsibly.
Absolutely. It's a tool that requires careful consideration, ethical guidelines, and ongoing dialogue to make sure it's used for good and not for harm.
Well said. And that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of defense contractors and technology. It's been a real eye-opener for me, and I hope our listeners feel the same way.
It's been my pleasure, and as always, we encourage our listeners to stay curious, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.
Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
Yeah, it's been an eye-opener for me too. Always something new to discover in this field. Speaking of new, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Leonardo DRS.
Leonardo DRS. Okay, what's the deal with them?
Well, they're doing some really interesting stuff, focusing on what you might call giving the military super senses.
Super senses. Okay, now you've got my attention. What do you mean by that?
It's all about advanced detection, protection, communication systems, giving soldiers a real-time, comprehensive view of what's happening on the battlefield.
So like the eyes and ears of the military. Gathering all the intel, making sure everyone's in the loop.
Exactly. They've got 4 main areas they focus on: advanced sensing, force protection, network computing and communications, and then power and propulsion. Each one plays a critical role in how wars are fought these days.
Okay, let's break those down one by one, starting with advanced sensing. What kind of tech are we talking about here?
Think of it as everything that helps the military detect and understand threats. So things like cutting-edge radar systems, ones that can see farther and with way more detail than ever before. They're also a big player in electronic warfare.
Electronic warfare.
Yeah, basically it's about jamming enemy signals and making sure our own communications are protected.
So it's like a high-tech game of cat and mouse, but with much higher stakes.
Exactly. And then there's force protection.
Okay, what's that all about?
Force protection is about keeping soldiers safe, on the front lines. Leonardo DRS develops things like advanced armor for vehicles, the protective gear soldiers wear, and even systems that can intercept those incoming threats, like rockets and missiles.
Wow, so they're literally on the front lines of protecting our troops. That's a huge responsibility. What about network computing and communications? What role does that play in modern warfare?
Well, in today's battle space, communication is more important than ever. Network computing and communications is all about making sure the military can communicate effectively and securely no matter what's going on around them. We're talking secure data links, battlefield-wide networks, systems that can share info in real time.
So they're the ones making sure everyone's on the same page, even in the middle of, well, a war. No more carrier pigeons, huh?
Right. And finally, there's power and propulsion.
Okay, what falls under that category?
Power and propulsion is all about how military vehicles and systems are powered and how they move. They're working on stuff like advanced naval power systems, for ships, and hybrid electric drives for those military vehicles.
So it's not just about weapons and defense. They're thinking about the whole package, how to make military operations more efficient and sustainable, too. Pretty forward thinking.
It is. It shows that they're not just reacting to the needs of today, but trying to anticipate the challenges of tomorrow. But here's the interesting thing. Leonardo DRS is privately held. Do you know what that means for, investment purposes?
Ah, good point. Privately held companies aren't on the stock market, right? So everyday investors can't just buy shares. Is there any way to invest in them, though, like indirectly?
You're exactly right. They're not publicly traded on their own. But they are a subsidiary of Leonardo SPA, which is a much bigger company based in Italy. And that company is publicly traded.
Interesting. So if you believe in Leonardo DRS and its technology, you could potentially invest in the parent company. That's good to know.
Oh.
Okay, now, are you ready for this? Let's talk Palantir. Their SkyKit system is just next-level stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one. The SkyKit is like straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's a portable intelligence command center, all in a backpack. It's insane.
You're telling me it's definitely captured a lot of people's imaginations, and it's easy to see why. It's designed to give soldiers in the field real-time intelligence capabilities no matter where they are.
I saw a video of it online, and it's packed with so much tech. 2 monitors, batteries that last for days, even secure storage for all the devices. It's like a mobile bat cave. They really thought of everything to make it as functional and as portable as possible. And the technology inside is just as impressive. What were some of the things that stood out to you?
Oh, man, where do I even begin? It comes with a drone, a trail camera, a ruggedized laptop, all running Palantir's AI software.
And that software is really the heart of the SkyKit. It's got these 2 main components, Metaconstellation and AIP.
Metaconstellation and AIP. Those sound like they could be weapons themselves. What do they actually do?
So Metaconstellation gives soldiers access to and the ability to analyze satellite imagery from anywhere in the world. Imagine you're out in the field, you need to see what's happening from space. You can do that right there from your backpack.
That's just wild. It's like having your own personal satellite network.
Right.
What about AIP? Fill me in.
AIP stands for Artificial Intelligence Platform. It's basically the brains behind the drone and the trail camera. It uses all these advanced algorithms to identify and track targets, analyze patterns, even make decisions based on the information it's gathering.
Hold on. The AI is making decisions. Isn't that a little, I don't know, unsettling, having an AI calling the shots in a war zone?
It's definitely a huge development. It raises all sorts of questions about the role of AI in warfare and what could happen, if things go wrong. But it shows how Palantir is really pushing the limits of what's possible with this kind of technology.
It's both fascinating and a little bit scary, to be honest. It feels like we're stepping into the future, but we don't know what's waiting for us there. But anyway, Palantir is definitely a company to keep an eye on, especially with their market cap. $133 billion. That's mind-blowing.
Their success is undeniable, but they have been a bit controversial over the years. You familiar with any of that?
Yeah, I've read some articles about, concerns over privacy, surveillance, that kind of thing. It seems like their tech is so powerful that it raises some ethical questions about how it's used.
You're right. The potential for misuse is something that needs to be discussed and considered as this tech becomes more common. But for now, let's stick to the technology itself and what it represents in terms of innovation.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've covered a lot of ground. We've got companies cleaning up radioactive waste. We've got companies developing AI-powered backpacks. It's clear the world of defense contracting is way more diverse and innovative than most people realize. But what's the big takeaway here? Where is all this technology leading us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? All this technology raises some really fundamental questions about the future of warfare. Will these advancements make the world safer or more dangerous? Will we see more conflicts or fewer? And what about those increasingly autonomous systems? With AI making decisions, what role will they play in shaping how wars are fought? These are questions we have to think about as we move forward.
Those are some heavy questions. It's a lot to think about. But it's important that we have these conversations, that we don't just shy away from the tough stuff. Technology is moving so fast, and we need to be prepared for what's coming, both the challenges and the opportunities. But for now, let's take a step back and remember the human element in all of this. We've been talking about companies and tech, but ultimately, it's people making the decisions about how these tools are used.
You're absolutely right. We can't lose sight of that human factor. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new technology, but it's important to remember that these are just tools. And like any tool, they can be used for good or for evil.
That's such an important point. Technology itself is neutral, but how we use it can have huge consequences. So as we move into this tech-driven future, it's crucial that we put ethical considerations first, that we develop these technologies responsibly, and then we have open and honest conversations about the potential impact they could have.
I couldn't agree more. We need to be proactive in shaping the future we want, not just reacting to whatever changes come our way.
Well said. Now, for our listeners who are interested in learning more about this topic, what resources would you recommend?
There's so much info available online. Company websites are a good place to start, but don't stop there. Check out news articles, research reports, even documentaries. And of course, there are podcasts like ours that go into different aspects of the defense industry.
And don't forget books. There are some amazing authors writing about these issues. But for now, let's turn the tables. Out of all the companies we've discussed today, which one stands out to you as the most, I don't know, the most interesting or innovative?
That's a tough one. They're all doing really impressive work. But if I had to pick, I think I'd go with Palantir. Their work with AI, particularly that SkyKit platform, is truly groundbreaking. It's pushing the boundaries of what's possible in defense intelligence and operations. But their work also highlights the ethical concerns we've been talking about. It's a reminder that any technological advancements come with a responsibility to use them wisely.
Yeah, I agree. Palantir is a fascinating example of both the potential and the possible downsides of advanced technology. They're at the forefront of AI, but their work also raises those questions about privacy, surveillance, and the potential for things to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's definitely complicated, no easy answers.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole field so interesting. It's not just about the tech itself, but also about its impact on society, on our ethics, even on the future of humanity.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to shift gears again. We've been talking about all this cutting-edge tech, but I'm curious about another side of the defense industry, the environmental side. Let's go back to Amentum for a moment and take a closer look at their work in, nuclear cleanup and environmental remediation.
That's a great idea. Amentum's work in that area is often overlooked, but it's incredibly important. They're dealing with some of the toughest environmental problems we face, things like radioactive contamination and hazardous waste disposal. It's a side of the defense industry that people don't hear enough about.
I know, right? When most people think defense contractor, they picture weapons and military gear. But Amentum is showing us there's a whole other side to the story, one that's focused on protecting the environment, cleaning up the messes we've made.
Absolutely. They're using their expertise in nuclear engineering, chemistry, environmental science to solve these real-world problems that affect all of us. It shows how diverse and multifaceted the defense industry really is.
Definitely. And their work highlights how environmental protection and national security are often linked. A healthy environment is crucial for a strong and secure nation. Companies like Amentum play a vital role in both.
Their projects involve everything from cleaning up contaminated sites to developing new tech for waste management and pollution control. They're even working to restore ecosystems that have been damaged by military activities.
Wow, that's impressive. They're really committed to sustainability and taking care of the environment. And it's not just about cleaning up the past. They're also working to prevent future problems by developing more eco-friendly technologies and practices for the military.
You got it. It's a very proactive approach to environmental protection, which is so important these days.
Okay, so we've talked about Amentum-specific projects, but let's zoom out a bit. What are some of the bigger trends and challenges when it comes to this whole field of environmental remediation?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is just the scale of the problem. There are so many contaminated sites around the world, many of them left over from past military activities. Cleaning them up is a huge undertaking. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of expertise.
It's like trying to clean up after this giant, messy party that's been going on for decades. Where do you even start?
It can be daunting, but it's absolutely essential work. And companies like Amentum are leading the charge, developing those new technologies and approaches to tackle these challenges. One of the most promising areas is bioremediation.
Bioremediation. What that?
It's using microorganisms, basically tiny living things, to break down those contaminants in the soil and water.
So it's like harnessing the power of nature to clean up our messes. That's pretty neat. What other innovative approaches are they using?
Nanotechnology is another exciting area. Scientists are working on these tiny particles that can target and remove specific contaminants from the environment.
Tiny particles. Like how tiny are we talking?
Super tiny. These nanoparticles can be designed to bind to pollutants and then be removed, leaving the surrounding environment clean.
That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie. Tiny robots cleaning up the planet. What about AI? Is AI playing a role in this too?
Absolutely. AI is being used to analyze all that data from contaminated sites. It can help identify the most effective cleanup methods and even control the robots used in the process. It's making the whole cleanup process more efficient, more accurate, and less expensive.
Wow. So AI isn't just changing warfare, it's changing how we clean up the environment too. It seems like there's no limit to what it can do.
You're right. AI is a powerful tool, and it can be applied to all sorts of challenges, including environmental ones. But it's important to remember that AI isn't a magic solution. It's a tool that has to be used responsibly and ethically.
That's a really important point. We can't just blindly trust AI to solve all our problems. We have to be aware of the risks, what could happen if things go wrong. But overall, it seems like AI could be a force for good in the world, even when it comes to cleaning up the environment.
I agree. When it's used thoughtfully and ethically, AI can help us create a more sustainable and healthy planet for us and for future generations. And companies like Amentum are leading the way, showing us how AI can be used for environmental good.
Their work is inspiring, that's for sure. It's a reminder that the defense industry isn't just about building weapons, it's also about protecting our planet. But now, let's shift gears one last time. We've been talking about specific companies, but I want to explore the bigger picture here. What are some of the ethical considerations we need to think about as these technologies keep advancing?
That's a crucial question. As these technologies become more powerful and more common, we need to have serious conversations about what they mean for us ethically. We have to think about the potential for misuse. What could happen if they fall into the wrong hands? And we have to consider the impact on our privacy and civil liberties, the unintended consequences that could arise.
It's easy to get excited about new tech, but we can't forget about the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
We have to be proactive in setting those guidelines, those rules, to make sure these technologies are used responsibly, that they benefit humanity.
Absolutely. We can't just ignore this and hope for the best. We have to be involved, thinking critically about these things and working to shape how these technologies are integrated into our world.
It's complicated and challenging, no doubt, but it's something we can't afford to ignore. The future of our society, maybe even the future of humanity, depends on our ability to use these technologies wisely, ethically.
You're absolutely right. We're at a crossroads. We have this opportunity to use technology to make the world a better place, but we also have the potential to create some really serious problems if we're not careful. The decisions we make today will have a huge impact down the road, so it's important that we're cautious, thoughtful, and responsible.
Well said. It's a heavy topic, but it's one we need to be talking about. But for now, let's take a break from the serious stuff and have a little fun. We've been talking about some incredible technology. If you could have any one of these technologies for yourself, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a fun question. Let me think. If I could have any of these, I think I'd go with Palantir's SkyKit. Not because I plan on, going behind enemy lines or anything like that, but it's just such a cool and versatile piece of technology. I could use it for all sorts of things, like planning hiking trips, tracking wildlife, just like exploring the world around me in new ways. Plus, it comes with a drone.
I can see the appeal. It's like the ultimate adventure gadget. But for me, I think I'd have to go with Leonardo DRS's advanced sensing technology. Imagine being able to see in the dark, hear sounds from miles away, detect things that are invisible to the naked eye. It'd be like having superpowers.
That would be amazing. You could solve mysteries, explore hidden places, maybe even get a glimpse of the supernatural. Who knows what you'd find?
The possibilities are endless. It's fun to think about how these technologies, even though they were designed for the military, could be used in everyday life.
It shows that even the most advanced tech can have these unexpected benefits we might not have even thought of. And it's a reminder that innovation can come from anywhere. But, okay, let's bring it back to reality for a minute. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the specific technologies these companies are developing to those bigger questions about ethics and what all of this means for society.
It's been a fascinating journey, for sure. We've seen how the defense industry is pushing the limits of what's possible, developing technologies that are changing the world in some really big ways. But we've also seen that there are risks, challenges we need to be aware of.
It's a complex and constantly changing landscape. But by staying informed, thinking critically, and having these open and honest discussions, we can help shape the future of technology, making sure it benefits all of humanity. So for our listeners who want to learn more, we encourage you to do your own research, stay curious, and never stop asking questions.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the world of defense contractors and the incredible technologies they're developing. It's been a real eye-opener, and I hope you learned something new along the way.
It's been great sharing my insights with you. And as always, we encourage our listeners to stay curious, keep learning, and never stop exploring the world around them. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
It really has been a wild ride, hasn't it? From companies building weapons to, tiny robots that clean up pollution.
It shows you just how broad this sector is. It's not just about, military power anymore. It's about using tech for all sorts of things.
You know, it's interesting. It feels like the defense industry gets a bad rap sometimes.
Yeah.
People just think war and destruction. But we've seen a different side of it today.
That's true. There's this perception that they're just war profiteers, but they're developing tech that could actually help solve some of the world's biggest problems, like Amentum and their work with nuclear cleanup and environmental stuff. That's important for everyone, not just the military.
Exactly. Radioactive beaches, nuclear waste. They're even helping to fix those ecosystems that were damaged. That's huge.
It is. And it shows that the defense industry isn't just this, single-minded thing focused only on war. There are companies doing all sorts of things, some of which could make the world a better place.
It's not all doom and gloom then.
Not at all. There are always concerns, of course, like what if this tech gets misused? Especially with things like AI and those autonomous weapon systems. But remember, tech is a tool. It can be used for good or bad. It all comes down to the choices we make.
That's a good point. It's on us to make sure this tech is developed and used responsibly, ethically. We need to have those tough conversations and make sure things don't get out of hand.
I agree. We can't just sit back and hope for the best. We got to be proactive, thoughtful about how all this gets integrated into our world.
Okay, well, we've covered so much today. Drones that can fly across continents, tiny robots cleaning up pollution. The world of defense contracting is full of surprises.
It definitely is. And I think the big takeaway for our listeners is that this is something worth paying attention to. Whether you're interested in tech, in business, or just the future of warfare, there's something here for everyone.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I've learned so much about the companies, the technologies, the issues. It's been a journey.
It's been great exploring all this with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and stay engaged in these conversations about the future of technology. Until next time, stay curious.